Hello, people. I'm back with the with a night session again, and back with the story of Abraham-Sargon, who is the ultimate beast, the beast head of the great beast of history, and we've tackled the question of Abraham more or less. I mean, this is all like not going into great detail. I'm just giving you an idea and the basic outline and the most basic thought flow that is in my research work. This one, Mago 2, and its book about the beast. So tackling the beast, and we've already observed Abraham, who is the first figure from a certain aspect of our history, religious history, the first godfather, let's say, the founder of patriarchy, and this is the key here. We're looking at the foundations of the system that's sucking us dry and sucking the earth dry, and this is patriarchy, colonial patriarchy, and the man who set this in motion through programming, misprogramming our societies and systems was Abraham. Now in history, the person who is responsible for the same action, the same crime, basically, it's a crime against humanity. In history, this person is called Sargon. Sargon of Akkad, he is called. He is the first tyrant of known history after a long lineage of the good Sumerian kings, and you can find the king's tablets in the Sumerian culture. I mean, it's documented. The king list of Sumeria, and they were all good kings, and their systems were good systems. It was a flourishing civilization, the Sumerian. Of course, it's an interesting question, and there later on, I think there will be parts where we go into depths of actually the first appearances of patriarchy well before Abraham. So Abraham didn't introduce patriarchy as such. He set patriarchy in stone. He's responsible for that. He set patriarchy in the stone of a system. It became a system. Previously, we can already see signs of patriarchy in the Sumerian culture and civilization. It's really interesting already in Gilgamesh and certain other myths and phenomena also. So it's fascinating to observe history, and particularly this era of history, because it reflects our whole current story as well, and it's reflected in our current relationships and patterns and social, collective ills as well. So, chapter 2, the terrible King Sargon. It is to him that we can connect and tie the political coup aspect of the great coup. The extended historical coup, which has brought about or gave birth to the great beast, which is the deep state, as we know full well by now, right? I hope. So the great political coup is the fourth of the coups, or the aspects of the coup in line. So the great political coup. the first so-called Semitic empire being the Akkadian Empire from around 2300 BC, around. I would question this, but from around 2300 BC, born from the anti-Sumerian coup. The second part of the first stage of the Great Semitic Coup induced fall of mankind. Enter Sargon. So Sargon constitutes the second part of the first stage after Abraham. Here also we can observe the same motives: betrayal of the covenant of unity, destruction of the temple, first Akkad, then the others, and abuse and murder. And at this point, against and towards the Sumerians, okay, Magnus of people, the original unity, okay, Sargon, Sarkin, first tyrant of Akkad or Agade, rising dynasty of Akkad, the first colonial patriarchal terror state, setting the example for millennia to come, aggression and manipulation. Akkad, mother of Assyria, Persia, Greece, Rome, USA, the great Talmudic Empire. Okay. So the number one, the first political establishment that was based on the seed breaking. Is this all right? On the broken seed pattern and program was the Semitic Akkadian Empire from around the 23rd century BC. Okay, point is, Blitz of Akkad, dated from around 2334 to 2000 BC. There's a cylinder seal with an inscription, Babylon crushes Agadeki. So who crushes Akkad? Okay, what is Agadeki? Akkad, Sumerian city-state. Sargon, the arch killer, descendant of Cain. Background, okay, Sargon ruled the world. Okay, one step before Sargon appeared on the scene and colonized and crushed Akkad and became its king, we see a beautiful golden helmet from one of the last Sumerian lords. Golden helmet of the Sumerian Mest Kalandug, now today in the British Museum. Of course, where else would it be? So after the fall of the golden helmet, which is obviously fine high craft and art, and we also can know that it was a time of peace between the Sumerian city-states, suddenly rose this guy, this face, this configuration of a human ruler. They call it the Mask of Sargon, but it might be his grandson Naram-Sin. But anyway, it's the same mafia. It's not really even a face. I'm saying it is a mask. So what happened between the two, the golden helmet of the Sumerian king and this mask? What happened? The breakaway and overthrow happened, the descent and coup. Mimicry, masquerade, forgery, colonization, parasitism, aggression. Yes, so-called Mask of Sargon. So there was this jolt, a sudden radical change in the course of history around this time. Sargon was clearly uninitiated, merciless, full of ambition, power-hungry, and vain. All superiority comes from inferiority. All arrogance from complexes. All aggression from insecurity. This is so key. Introduced assorted tortures, humiliations, subjugations into our historical memory. Okay, the story of Sargon, just like or other made up stories. Yeah, it's a fake story of where he came from and who he was. From now on, take everything with a grain of salt and don't believe anything you read in books, chronicles, scriptures. Everything is touched up. It's a forged negative. The identity of Sargon. Okay. Pattern of man raping, killing, burying his helpless victim, his own soul being tortured, brutally murdered, and annihilated by the system that he is unconsciously a victim to. Now 3 figures are superimposed, complementing each other beautifully and truthfully. Abraham, Saruman, and Sargon. Oh my God. And then the 4th one. Just put all these evil guys together, and then you'll get a little bit closer to just feeling what we're talking about. The evil behind our history and behind our paradigm. Everything is connected with everything. So this is the first source patriarch of terror that we're talking about, and we're trying to put his image together. So in the Akkadian-ruled political chronicles, there are 4 generations and 5 kings who changed everything. Sargon, his son, blah, blah, blah. 4 generations, 5 kings, changed everything in 200 years. Yes. So 4 generations, 5 kings who change everything. This is the Akkadian situation. 4 generations, 5 kings who change everything. And this might be familiar from another tradition, which is obviously the Abrahamic tradition. So 4 generations, 5 kings who changed everything. Yes, so Abraham is that Isaac, and brother Jacob, Joseph, is the same as the Akkadian gang. They are superimposed. They are superimposed and identical. This is my little mug. Can you see? My mug model of initiation, and it goes juxtaposition, superimposition, identification. The outermost layer being juxtaposition, that's the first step. Second step is superimposition, and third step is identification. This is from my PhD research work. And so the way of initiation is the way of the seed. This triadic magic rite of passage, discovered and modeled in my book, The Celtic Code. Okay, so juxtapose them, Abraham and Sargon, superimpose them, and bam, it says bam. So yes, just realize, wow, the 2 traditions have to be the same. They have to be the same. Abraham and Sargon have to be the same because the 2 stories are exactly the same. They're 2 sides of the same thing. The very same thing. They essentially see them as doing the same thing. Yeah. Sargon of Akkad on his victory stela. Sargon of Akkad and dignitaries, and his title, King Sargon. So what he does on his victory stela, like the depiction of his victory, he bangs somebody on the head, obviously the indigenous population, and he subjugates, hits, uses physical force and subjugates. This is key. This is where it all started. This is where colonialism started. This is where the overthrow of the original population with force and scheming began, and the subjugation of the original populations and of unwanted elements such as women and non-Semites. This is where it all comes from. Yeah, I'm not going to go into detail. So this is the fifth aspect of the coup, is the military coup. And this is where we can observe the military coup with the appearance of Sargon and with the figure of Sargon. And he was well documented. His wars and the political and historical events are well documented. So we can observe exactly what Sargon did. And thus, once we identify him with Abraham, it becomes a full picture. So, war, ravage and devastation, occupation and terror. Like, see? Depictions, very clear, it's documented. Sudden appearance of all of this. It's a system change. It's a new world order. New world order. Yeah, it didn't happen in the 20th century with Hitler. It began with this guy called Sargon, who you might identify with Abraham, and just, be in awe of this discovery and this fact, like, wow. So the ruthless, bloody conquest of Samaria. Semitic, anti-Sumerian rage, right? Goyim, literally meaning nations, is perplexing. The term is deliberately vague and is okay. Yeah. Rage and devastation, occupation, terror. Yeah. Sargon conquered Ur. Sargon conquered Ur and laid waste the territory from Lagash to the sea. So laid waste to the land. You understand, this is what he did, Sargon. Victorious over Ur, conquered and devastated. And then you see exactly what happens. A club hitting the indigenous on the head. Bam, on the head of the humiliated indigenous man. Seizing Akkad. Victory, military coup and occupation of Agade by Sargon. Subjugation of the original inhabitants, their culture and wealth. Prisoner in a cage, probably king of Uruk, being hit on the head with a mace by Sargon. Okay, Akkadian Empire, victory still in the Louvre, of course, where else? How ironic all of this. Depicting the ruthless inhumanity of the Akkadian coup. Yes, a net full of prisoners. This is what Sargon does. Using a mace, strikes a long-haired prisoner. Yes. Semitic Akkadian Empire led by Sargon invades Samaria. Akkad, a growing dark empire, growing darkness of the human story. A growing negative vortex, violence, lies and manipulation. A wrong patterning. The soul cannot bear to see what the beast of man has done, and instead of remorse, the beast man becomes even more bestial. Acapita fut et pistis, as the cynical but wise Latin proverb says, from its head does the fish stink. The head of our paradigm is ideologically Abraham and politically the Akkadian Empire. Bingo. Banka karma. Whoa. Abuse, torture, methodical, psychopathy grows. Yeah, indeed. Prisoner of the Akkadian Empire, nude, fettered, drawn by nose ring, with pointed beard and vertical braid. From this era. And then prisoners escorted by a soldier on a victory stele of Sargon of Akkad. The hairstyle of the prisoners is characteristic of Sumerians, and also seen in the standard of war. So the first genocide here is like one very, very please pay attention. The first genocide in human history. What kind of a person would perpetrate a genocide? What kind of a system, what kind of a mentality would perpetrate a genocide? And this is not only a 20th century question. This is a pattern in history. We're talking about a genocide. What brings somebody or somebodies to such an act? This is exactly what we're observing. The first genocide is the Sumerian genocide. The first genocide is the Sumerian genocide. So killing the Sumerians. And who are the killers? The Semites, obviously, with the Semitic program, Semitic patriarchy, Sargon and Abraham-Sargon. And you see this program also, the fratricide in Cain kills Abel, ritual killing and humiliation of the caste of Median Magi with a pyramid of skulls. The Median Magi are actually the descendants of the Sumerians, obviously. The devastation of Sumeria happened in several flows, several goes, several floods and flushes, as later on in history, like the siege of Troy and the annexation of that whole area of the westernmost part of Asia Minor and the Near East. It's exactly by the same people, by the same motives, same thing as the devastation and occupation of Sumeria in several goes. Okay, Akkad, a growing empire of darkness, lovelessness, soullessness, mercilessness. Who is this Sargon, the father of lies, fabricator of false history, forging divine initiation? He, just like Abraham, mimicked mimicked to be initiated and called and driven by God, good God. Obviously not. One might ask the question, were these people, or was this single guy, Sargon, Abraham-Sargon, driven by any other spirit, or just pure ego, pure hurt ego, or some demon? But then, it's a double-edged thing, because you have to maintain the weight of responsibility, personal responsibility. But then again, we see there that there are programs that run along humanity, and thus kind of chiseling responsibility a little, actually not chiseling, but lightening the weight of responsibility a little bit, because there are bad patterns. Of course, your responsibility is to say no to the bad pattern that runs in you. It's your responsibility to learn how to say no and to try to fix the bad program in you. But we also must realize that there's a system error that runs in us, the point of which is not to take away personal responsibility, or individual responsibility or collective responsibility, but the point is that we have to fix the system error. Collectively. after and before more individual work. Okay. First forged history, bullshit set in stone. The story of Sargon. Okay, and then the lineage coming from Sargon, his sons, just like Abraham's sons. This we will see further, because this will bring the rise of further, not just further violence, but also further newer and newer aspects of the coup, because ultimately the coup ended up being a total global world order, which it is by now, influencing all aspects of our life. All aspects are influenced by the system that is a misprogrammed system, right? As we said, the broken seeded, the broken patterned system is what we're trying to understand and tackle and ultimately fix. So we need to see how it all happened, and after the first 5 aspects of the coup, next we will go along the line to the further chapter of it, being an administrative coup, and we will see further figures of the patriarchy and the mafia, further mafia heads and events. And it's really like, it's a series, it's a historical series. It's really, really unbelievable what went down in history. So thank you very much. I think we have clearly identified Monsieur Abraham with Senor Sargon, and the 2 images and figures and lineages finally merge. And if you understand this, a lot of things will suddenly make perfect sense. Hopefully, inshallah. So let's again, I suggest let's digest these 2 figures and what they did and their identity, which is really a big one. And here I say goodbye with Holy Maradona and the Madonna, who is the mother of all underdogs of history and society. So God bless, peace, bye.